What up, everybody? It's the Built Different Podcast. Sean and Ricky here on another beautiful sunny day. I don't know how you. Well, it looks like a lot of sun coming
It
through you.
it's sunny today here. It's just cold, but sunny.
No, beautiful. Not as cold as it was a couple weeks ago, so something to be thankful for. But yeah, what we wanted to talk about today was something that Sean and I have been dealing with. I think every company deals with, especially in technology, especially startups. The dreaded and infamous pitch deck. So we want to give a little bit of feedback, kind of, what we really want to do, and the purpose of the podcast really has always been to show things through our lens, explain our experience, our journey with it, the highs, the lows. So we want to discuss pitch deck preparation, some of the slides that you might need, the overall theming of it, and purpose, and kind of some do's and don'ts. So, Sean, I guess maybe I'll let you kind of kick it off. Like, where did you want to start?
I mean, we could start talking about, the first deck that we put together. Um, it was rough. It was probably what, 2 years ago ish, maybe more.
Yeah, probably maybe 3 years ago.
And yeah, I mean, that was done, other than putting like background colors on the pages and putting photos in to complement the words, like that was pretty much the extent of the aesthetic aspects that we got into. And then eventually we partnered with the a group that was helping us with some marketing and branding stuff, and we were able to get some design backgrounds in there that were a little helpful. But yeah, I mean, that was kind of where we started with it. And it was, we wanted to make sure that we got across everything um, that we want to show off to investors and to people that we're showing the deck to. Um, and it's very hard, very difficult to create a balance between saying everything you want to say and showing off all of the great features, great aspects of your product, and not overwhelming someone with information. A lot of people that are going to be reading pitch decks are people that have very valuable time, like who their time is limited and it's very valuable. So they don't want to be sitting there reading your pitch deck for 45 minutes. It's something that they are typically going to want to do a quick scan through. And if they're interested, then, they'd follow it up with, hey, I want to hear your pitch and so on and so forth.
Yeah,
And, that's where you kind of can build that relationship. So, uh, I mean, thinking back to some of our old decks, they definitely had too many words, too many slides, too much everything. Um, but comparing that to what we've done more recently, we've kind of, I think, simplified it a lot. We've kind of identified aesthetically like the vibe we want the slides to have, and kind of the it matches our branding now a lot more than it did in the past. Um, and yeah, I think overall the evolution of what our slides have looked like in the past to what they are now is very, very uh much improved. And the content as well is a lot more digestible, which I think is not only good for an investor but also good for us, for the people who are pitching it. um, the simpler your slide is, the easier it is for you to get across the information that you're trying to get across. So that's kind of a brief background into my views on our older decks and kind of where we've transitioned and where we've gone to now. What are your memories and thoughts on those days before we kind of got to where we're at now, Ricky?
yeah. I mean, it's just a work in progress. It's a learning process because, like you said, you have this. And I'm speaking for myself, and I guess it kind of ties to even where you were at that time as well. You think you have this. Well, in our case, I'm gonna say no. Speaking in positives, no, we have this really cool thing, this groundbreaking technology, this thing that's going to change the world, and that's your thing. When you're presenting it to anybody, you really want to get that across. Like, man, this is so cool. It does this, it does that, it does this. In the future, it's going to be able to do this and that. It's going to change this, it's going to change that. and you really want to forecast on the deck, and come to find out, people really don't give a damn about any of that. I mean, they want to know what you're thinking, what you're doing, what you're solving, things like that. And I know we'll get into the do's and don'ts, but that was our issue to begin with, and me really leading us. It was all about selling the vision and selling, which to a degree we still are, but in a very filtered way in comparison. But yeah, what results is you put a bunch of words on pages, you put too many pictures, you have too many slides, and come to find out, we learned this through this process really, that most of these investors are only going to look at it for 5 minutes. They're searching for keywords. They're searching for, specific, and we'll talk about the do's here in a few, but they're looking for specific highlights, specific wording, specific elements. So they're just literally scrolling through these things quickly. It's like, I heard a great explanation yesterday, and I'll talk more about this when we talk about the do's and don'ts. But think about it from your perspective. They're viewing your decks the way that you view social media. You know what I mean? You're not, when a social media post comes up, you're not reading an entire thing. You may just skim the highlights. If it interests you, you're gonna maybe look at it a little more. But if it doesn't, you're just gonna go past it, go past it, go past it. But it's the same exact thing with these investors. The way we consume social media, what most of us do, where it's just scanning, 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 finding things of interest, they're doing the same thing on your deck. So, that was kind of one of the big turning points for myself and kind of what we're displaying on there. But yeah, it was, there's so many different areas of the deck that you really want to hit on and that you really want to make impactful. You really want to, you know, you really want to get those things across, but you can't you can't put everything on paper, essentially. A lot of these things, it's the what it really is. It's opening. It's kind of the opening to broaden the discussion. You know, it's kind of
Yeah.
like that invite to like, hey, let's. I like it's almost. I always like to equate things to dating because it's kind of the easiest thing for people to say. It's almost like your profile on a dating website. I've never had one, but from knowing, hearing about it and everything, you have that profile to entice that individual to kind of like, hey, let's talk a little further. It's the same exact thing with investors. That's what your deck is. It's like you putting your best foot forward, but in a very concise manner to attract their attention and further a conversation, a deeper conversation.
Yeah, no, I mean I completely agree, and I think our view back in the day, or at least my view, I don't want to speak for you, was, you're asking these people for thousands or potentially even millions of dollars, depending on, what company you are, what you're asking for. So you're trying to, in a way, justify why
Yeah.
what you have is worth that. And
Mhm.
so, you know, it seems counterintuitive to make something super simple and super non-detailed when
Yeah.
you're asking for that kind of money. But at the same time, it is, I think your analogy of using like as a dating profile, it is kind of just essentially a way to pique their interest, say, hey, you know, there could be some synergy here. This could be something that you could put some money into, make some money long term, and um, that allows them to kind of be like, okay, I'm interested in this. I like what they're saying here. Let me learn about, let me learn more and start the connection there. So it really is more of an introduction and a first impression versus a, you know, like a resume, for example. Like, you're not trying to sell them on everything all at once. You're trying to sell them on, hey, let's continue to have this conversation. And if you like what we say here, then you're really gonna like what we're coming back with the next time, you know?
Yeah, no, 100%. And we're so conditioned. I think we say, for instance, back in school, even college, like, English, uh, forget the courses, English 101 or whatever the hell, like, you have to write all of these words. You have to be very descriptive. You have to, the more words, the better. And it's very different on your deck. You want to, you want to limit it. It's as brief of a sentence or wording as possible to attract the most attention. It's like getting the most bang for your buck out of every word you put on there.
Yeah,
Um,
it's essentially like efficiency. You want to use your words efficiently. That way, they're not wasting their time, you're not wasting your time, and you're able to fit as much information on there as possible
yeah,
in as few words as possible without
yeah,
it sounding like a robot.
and it's another. You putting yourself in. You got to put yourself in their shoes as well, which is hard for a lot of people because you're not, unless you've been in the investment game and you're starting a startup or something like that, which is probably more rare than it is usual. You got to put yourself in their shoes. It's very similar to like whatever you have on those slides. It should be very succinct, and what you're doing and the impact you're creating. You should be able to. It should be able to roll off your tongue. Similarly to when you do an elevator pitch and you're on an elevator with somebody, you got like 2 minutes to tell them about what you do. You want that, basically want that on your deck where somebody's able to grasp it, understand it. You don't want a lot of technical jargon or jargon that's uh, relative, that is relatable to your company, that people within your company might know, but somebody an outsider might not know. So you really want to hit the nail on the head with your wording and what you get across, and it needs to be quick, it needs to be succinct, it needs to you can hand it to an average person, and this is where I really had to learn. Most of us, I think the stigma is, and I'm not saying that this isn't true, but most of us think that these investors tend to be like geniuses. You think, oh, these people are investing, and when you're looking for investors, you want to make sure it's the right fit. Obviously, you're not sending your deck to a bio-environmental uh, or social investment group that invest in social products, and you got a performance technology, sports performance technology. So the audience is targeted, obviously, right? But
Yep.
you can't speak to them as if they know exactly what you're describing, your jargon, these different things. You got to really, it sounds like we said, it sounds like it should be the opposite, but really you want to dumb it down. You should be able to hand it to anybody and they can basically understand what your company does and what impact you're trying to create, what you're solving, what problem you're addressing.
Yeah, and I think that is a great segue into what you were kind of alluding to earlier with some of the do's and don'ts.
Yeah.
Do you want to kind of talk more about some of those things you just mentioned? As far as I think most of those were kind of the do's, of what you feel like needs to be in a pitch deck in order for it to be impactful.
I think number one, you need to have that problem. That's feedback we've gotten is that problem needs to be the first thing you kind of list out.
And can you explain, just for people that might not know, what exactly you mean by problem?
So, for instance, I mean, anything that anybody kind of comes up with is essentially it's a better way of doing something that maybe somebody else did in the past. It's a new way of doing something, but all in all, like companies, people that have a vision, you're always trying to create a easier way for people to do things, a better way to do things. You're trying to fix a issue that's out in society, economic, whatever. You really have to have list out kind of the problem that you're addressing and that your technology or your company is helping to fix or helping to make better. So that's kind of the number one thing, that investors are looking for is the problem. Because the main piece of feedback that I've gotten about investors is like they key, why you got to be succinct. They key in on what you're talking about. So if you're, like I said, you have a solution, biochemistry solution. They should their minds are automatically working on even in that problem side. Okay, you know this is the problem they're solving. Okay, they're in this industry. Their minds are already automatically sizing that market. They're already figuring out how big your company can grow. You know what I mean? That's the whole thing with everything that you put on the deck is like these guys are analyzing, guys and girls are analyzing everything that you're putting on the deck. So even from slide one, when you're putting the problem out there, it's important to have it on there. One, because of what you're solving, but also two, their minds start getting, working on, okay, I can see what they're doing here. I can see what they're solving. Like, yeah, this is an issue. Like, man, if we put our money into this and they do what they're, what they say maybe later on in the deck, this is going to be huge. Or I can see a 10x on this, whatever, you know what I mean? So the problem slide is really important. And again, the tendency probably is to go in depth, like, and really disparage. You don't want to disparage competitors, or you don't want to make the problem bigger than what it is. You don't want to, because eventually you're going to say, hey, I'm solving this thing. You don't want to make it this outrageously big thing that it really isn't. You know what I mean? You want to be realistic, but at the same time, you need to address what that problem is, and that's kind of the catalyst for the rest of the deck. You know what I mean?
Because yeah, I mean, I completely agree. And at the end of the day, it's like if you have a product that isn't solving a problem, then what's the point of your product at all? It's like
Hmm.
that. That's basically like your reasoning for developing this product is there was a problem, and your
Right.
product should be the solution. So with with that in mind, you want to go into the next one, which is uh the solution.
I'm here. I'm just closing out my phone from another meeting because it's too loud, in my opinion. Go ahead, sir.
I was saying, do you want to jump into talking about the next uh, the next necessary thing within your uh, pitch deck, which realistically should be the solution?
Yeah, so solution, obviously, you want to, again, be succinct. You don't want to go into too much crazy detail, like too much crazy detail. Again, you want to present the solution to and the solution should follow the problem, almost to a T. Like, if the problem is, not enough XYZ, you want to show how you're going to provide more of XYZ. You know what I mean? It needs to kind of be parallel to what that solution is. So solution as well. Um, it's kind of it's good to have some, maybe even figures, like percentages, like improvements that that your company's providing. You want to have just great information and great detail in a very succinct way on what the way you're kind of addressing any of the problems that you put on addressing the problems that you put on the problem slide. Um, and again, our learning curve there was, we got way too detailed in terms of solution, because the thing with us, not I don't want to say issue, but our thing is like we have a multifaceted approach to solving a lot of those issues, and it can be a way that you start going more in depth. But again, for people that are reading this, the investors, you really, if it's a deck that you're sending out for like marketing or something like that, you can be detailed. But investor deck, you want to be super succinct and right to the point about it. You don't want to be lingering and lingering on. Just, get it done.
Yeah, no, I completely agree, and I think what you said makes a lot of sense with making sure that the solution matches with the problem statement. And yeah, what do you think the next thing after uh, the solution would be?
Sorry about that. This meeting, I had to just turn it off. I was trying to let it run in the background, but some people's mics are louder than others. Oh, that's weird. So sorry, repeat what you just said.
I just agreed with you about everything you said regarding the solution, kind of mimicking, or not mimicking, paralleling the problem statement.
Yeah.
And then asked what you think the next key thing to have in a deck would be.
Next key thing I would put after the solution, um, and I think after that, you just depending on what you're doing, you can have these in various orders. But I think to an investor, if I'm skimming it as an investor, you want to have the market sizing on there. The Tam Salmon song. You want to have that on there, and you want to that one you kind of want to be careful with as well because you can really believe you can really lose people on that slide. Um, some people might make their total addressable market this ridiculous size and then you'll say you're going to capture 5-10% of that market, and you're looking crazy on that slide because it's looking like you're gonna take this huge piece of a pie that exists. So you got to be very careful with that particular slide. But at the same time, and this is advice that we've gotten, this is one where investors' eyes and ears really perk up. Excuse me. Of course, like I said, when you put your problem out there, they their mind's already working on the market that you're in and the solution, the market that you're in and the size of it. It's already in their head, but they would want to see what you have on paper. And there's no exact science to it either, because how many times have we gone on and looked for market information, and there's so many different sources that have it in. But
Every website has a different number.
yeah, yeah, even you go on uh, use AI, GPT, or Claude, or anything, or any of those sources, they give you a list of different sources with varying numbers. But investors obviously they're in it to make money, so they want to make sure whatever market size you're in, like whatever you're trying to play in, that it's large enough for them to get a nice return back on if you happen to capture what you say you're going to capture. So that slide is really important. You don't want to be you don't want to go crazy on it and have just a huge total addressable market, but it needs to be a decent size. So I mean, technology, it has to be a good size market. Billions, hundreds of millions.
Well, another thing to consider too is the what you're like, and we're gonna get to this obviously, what you're asking for. If you're asking for $10,000, then your market size doesn't need to be in the billions. It can be in the, you know, millions or something smaller. So it's all about
I would say
to
industry,
what
depending on the industry.
industry
Yeah,
dependent and yeah, and like financial dependent as well. So just kind of basing it off of that. Like obviously you shouldn't be, but like there's some products that are going to be more niche and some products that are going to be more um, universally used. So a product that's more niche is going to have a smaller market size, but you may also be able to capture more of that market depending on, your IP and your, things like that, your ability to take a hold of that market. But one thing that I remember specifically that we've been told and is a big mistake that a lot of people make is overestimating how much of the market they're going to take. And yeah, I know you
yeah.
mentioned that, but like, sometimes it's like, oh, well, no one else is doing what we're doing, so like we should be able to take like 75% of the market. And they're like, no, that's not how that works. So
You just touched on one other key. Don't ever say that. Don't ever say you're the only one doing like you are the market. Don't ever say that there's nobody else doing. You know, you can say that we're doing things in different ways and we have a different approach or something like that. But you can never say there is no market. We're building the market because why would you invest in something that's not, you
that
know,
doesn't have a market.
yeah, and that's not proven. Like I've seen that before and heard it before with pitches where they're like, the people will ask them like, well, who's your competitors? We have no competition. It's like, you definitely don't want to do that.
Yeah, I mean, everyone has competition. It might not look the same. The first person to make an automobile wasn't competing with other automobiles necessarily, but they were competing with other modes of transportation that were already available. So even if you're like, oh, no one has exactly what we have, it's like, yeah, they might not, but the things were being done a different way before you came along. So
Hmm.
there was some way that they were making it work prior. Then now you might make your solution might be significantly better than what was being done before, but there is still an alternative option. There's still competitors. There's always going to be competitors out there.
Yeah, and that brings us to the next slide. Is you need a competition slide. You have to show how you're going to stand out in the marketplace. You have to show why your solution or what problem you're solving, you're doing it better than or in a more efficient way, or that you're able to even compete with um, current competitors. So, there's different ways to do that, different charts, different diagrams,
We've
different listings that you can kind of do. And we've played around with different variations.
we've done a bunch of different variations of that slide, I think, over the years.
Yeah, and I mean, you don't need to. The thing is with that as well, just to for the sake of viewing, you don't want to get crazy with it either, where you're listing every competitor. If you're a soft drink company, you don't want to list every a new soft drink company. You want to list every soft drink company out there on your slide. You want the key players, and even some of the companies that are most similar to what you're doing.
Yep. And yeah, I mean, there's other like like we were talking about earlier, there's some products that are more niche. So if you are a more niche product, then compare yourself to other niche products. Don't compare yourself don't say, "Oh, well, you know, we're gonna be the best soft drink company, whatever, because we're the first like or because we're like a vegan soft drink company, right?" But then you're comparing yourselves to like all the companies that aren't vegans. Like, I don't know. It's there's certain uh niche or like market specialties that try to compare yourself to the people that align the most with you, and also some of the biggest competitors, obviously, in the industry, because that's realistically that's who you're trying to take customers away from, is the people that already hold a large percentage of the market that you're trying to go after.
Yeah, and also touch on what you just said as well as in like in housing, right? When you're selling a house, you look at comps in the area, and it kind of gives you the idea of what you can sell your house for, or maybe even what you purchase a house for. It's the similar thing with the competition. Like in an investor's mind, they're seeing, what other companies in your industry have done, and like, okay, if these guys and girls are successful, um, hey, they may be on the level of that company, or maybe they surpass them, or go. Let's go back to your solution slide and see what you did, or even look at your competition slide and see how you differ from those companies. And man, they could actually if they do this, they could actually pull this off and be bigger than those companies. And man, what a hell of a return we'll get back for our group and for the investors that put money into this fund.
And I think that's where you really get to see where your deck is working in synchronization with the other parts of your deck, right? Because
Mm,
it's like your solution and to the problem should be kind of reiterated in the competitor slide,
yeah.
because the problem should be with the current competition, what
Mm,
they're not doing right necessarily, or what inefficiencies they have, and then your differentiators should be that solution, which should be showing up in that slide as well.
yeah. No, that's you hit on the nail. Like, there's a lot of synchronization with different slides on the deck. Um, and it's a good chance as well. You don't ever want to be repetitive on your deck, but it's another way to kind of drill into the minds of whoever's viewing the deck that what you're solving, how you're doing it, and they'll come to this competition slide and be like, okay, it may trigger something like, oh, okay, I see what they're doing here. I believe in what they're trying to accomplish here. I think that they, based on everything I'm seeing, because all of this is a trust factor. This is like we said, the opening dialogue to for a broader conversation. But the hope is that they see this particular slide, and it clicks for them, and that's when their their dollar signs are going off in their head because they're doing calculations, and as to what this can become, and then also to the you differentiate yourself enough on the problem and solution slides that it starts coming together, and so this slide I would say is a really key slide, and it's one you definitely have to have that in your deck.
And I think between the solution slide, if you have a slide kind of describing your product in more depth,
Hmm.
that slide and this competition slide, really the answer that your potential investor is going to want to know is, okay, this big competitor that you're saying that you're trying to beat out, are what makes you different from them, and why is it that you're going to be taking some of their portion of the market or
Hmm.
some of everyone's portion of the market? What is that differentiator? What makes you different? And we've gotten that question about other, wearable sports related technologies is, oh, what makes you different from this other company? And um, the goal is that it's clear enough within your deck that that question will just be answered through looking at your deck, but it's also a question that you should be prepared to answer when actually pitching the deck if that question comes up.
Yeah, and no, I highly agree with you there. So you did touch on something that I kind of skipped over as well. You do want images or slide that's kind of showcasing your solution or what you're building or what you've created or your service. You want a slide in there, kind of, and again, being super brief. You don't want to, because we've done this before too, where we have like every feature of our app, and we have it's just really worded. There's too many words on the slide, but you want to be quick and to the point about your solution, how it solves. It's really cool if you have, and great if you have a percentage, or they love to see how much money you're going to save. Potential clients, how you're cheaper, and how these are the ways that you show the impact you're able to have, and your thoughts on how you know how you outduel your competitors essentially. So yeah, you definitely want your product, your idea, your solution on a slide to really hone in and get into their brains, into their minds, what your how you plan on rolling this out. It's almost like a your business model. You really want to have that business model out there, how you're going to make money, because how you're going to make money is going to tell them how they're going to make money off of you. You know what I mean?
Yep.
Um, so you definitely want that business, something regarding your business model, how you intend to get into the market, how you what area you're targeting, and how you're creating that, kind of knifing your way into the marketplace. You want to have that on there as well, along with how you're which so you're how you get into the market, but then how you're going to make money in that market, your business model.
Yep. No, I completely agree. Um,
Um, for us, it was important to have being a tech focused company, a timeline. Investors want to kind of see what you've been doing, where you're going to be going, how long it's going to take you. You know what I mean? They really want to look into that. So for us, it was important to have a timeline. I think it could be dependent on company, but um, this is the way that I guess you kind of project the future and what your thoughts are on if they fund your company, where how long is it going to take you to reach certain milestones, and where do you envision the company being? Because again, they're doing that math and saying, okay, it's going to take, okay, they have a timeline out to 5 year projection, and they're going to be here at this stage, and I don't know, what our return is going to be at that stage. We're trying, a lot of them are trying to get out in 5, 10 years, really 10 years, trying to get a exit. Either your company's exiting, your company's sold, or they're moving on. So you really want to have that timeline in there so they can kind of start kind of doing some math and seeing what your thoughts are and where you're going to be and how long it's going to take. Um,
yeah, and I think too, just adding on to that, um, an investor obviously is there to make money. That's their primary goal. Um, Typically, I would say like 90% of the time, 99% of the time.
yeah.
Um, so yeah, like you said, they're they're kind of looking to get in. Like, I think some people might feel like, oh, have, I'm not at a certain point, or maybe I'm like, or I'm so far ahead that I don't need investment. And I think there's different levels to the investment that you can be potentially asking for, which I guess gets leads into the last question, which is kind of, or not the last question, but the last necessary slide, which is that ask, correct?
Yeah, it would be the ask or use of funds. Yeah, this is where, probably the main thing that they're looking at is how much you asking for, how much are we gonna have to outlay, or what way are they looking to be funded? Like, because a lot of these groups too will rely on other groups to put in as well, so they really want to see how much you're asking for, and then obviously, if I'm giving you money, I want to know what the hell you're gonna do with it. And that goes back to the timeline as well. They'll probably go look at this and go back to the timeline and trying to figure out like how far their money's going to stretch. When are you going to need to potentially raise again? Are you going to are you going to, is the runway that we're going to give them long enough based on the timeline that they laid out? They're doing math. More than likely they've invested in similar companies like yourself, and if the math ain't isn't adding up, the timeline's not adding up, then this could be an area where they step away. Maybe they advise you. Maybe they tell you you're asking for too much, too little. Maybe they're telling you you're being a little too ambitious, or like a little too ambitious, or maybe you're not going far enough with what you're speculating for time. Um, yeah.
Yeah, and I think when it comes to the money side of it, yeah, they want to make sure that you're asking for an appropriate amount for what you're claiming that you're going to do. Like if you're claiming that you're going to get 10% of a, billion-dollar market, and you're like, oh, but it'll only take me, $100,000 to get it. It's like, no, that's probably not right, you know. Um, and also your ask, while it's great if obviously one person could sustain the full ask, it doesn't always have to be one investor that comes in and gives you all the money you're looking for. Sometimes it could be where you get, a little bit here, a little bit there, and obviously like the combination of everything gets you to that ultimate uh fund number that you're looking to get to move forward.
Yeah, and I think at first we got a little hung up on this particular slide, and like it's tough asking somebody for millions of dollars. You know what I mean? But you got to think that every big company, even if you look at Elon and buying Twitter, he's raising funds for that. Everybody's using somebody else's money to, in most cases, I would say in most cases, companies are using other people's money, other people's financial investments to build a company. So you got to get you got to get past the fact that you're putting a dollar amount on the slide, and you know this slide too can vary a lot too. You can really go deep into you know what you're gonna give away in terms of equity for this amount. You could leave that blank and keep the conversation open. You could, there's a number of ways you can do the slide, but it's pertinent that you have the amount that you're asking for on there and what you're going to do with it. Um, Last slide, the team slide. This is normally the last slide on the deck. This is where you really want to hone in on the strengths of your team, because investors are looking at this and they're actually probably looking at the background and looking all of these individuals up, even running background checks on these individuals, to see who it's like again a relationship, seeing to who you're potentially getting in a relationship with. Are these guys and girls the people to do this? Like they have big ambitions on these other slides, and they're going to solve this problem. Are they the guys and girls to do this? So you really want to key in on the strengths of your team, the experience of the team, maybe even your advisors and who you're partnering with, and you just want to show that you have a strong foundation that's going to grow and that you can scale.
Yeah, no, I mean the team slide is definitely important. And it's definitely something that you want to, if you're claiming that you're going to go into this industry, that industry, you want to show that you have people that have the expertise to do that. Not every single person has to be an expert in every single thing, but you want people that have experience, that have the knowledge, and can walk you through to prevent, because ultimately the investors want their money to make them money. So they want to avoid missteps. They want to avoid, you know, uh, improper use of funds, things like that are going to ultimately either delay or prevent them from making their money back or 10xing their money or whatever their ultimate goal of the project is. So that team slide can be very important in making sure that there's a level of trust there between the investor and who you have in place to get you to those milestones.
Yeah, and somewhere you want to have your contact information as well because a lot of these get sent out to people and they need to be able to reach back out to you. Remember, it's like most of the time, in my experience, you're gonna, unless if you're cold, reaching out cold, it's gonna be an analyst, and that analyst is gonna look through this, see if it fits their funding requirements and what they invest in. They're gonna pass it on to you know principals or different people on the team to look at. Maybe they analyze it in a meeting and then say, "Hey, no, yes or no," and then that's when you get that bigger meeting. And then again, remember you're gonna be concise on this deck, but you're gonna, you're also if or you may have a different deck, but you're gonna pitch it as well. So while we're saying be concise, your pitch should be concise as well. But a lot of things you're gonna verbalize. So that's really where you go to town on the capabilities of your team, your strengths. You kind of should talk about the vision. You sell the idea and how powerful it's going to be and the game changer that's going to be. That's where you really kind of express your feelings. This is like we said, the opening topic. So you want the problem. The main things: problem, solutions. The investors are going to look at problem, solution, market size, and you want to talk your ask and your team. I think are the biggest things, the main
In
things they're probably going to
competition.
skim over. Yeah, competition as well. Those are the things they're going to mainly skim over. Like if they're going to skim, if they take 2 or 3 minutes, they're going to look at those main things. And they're in their head already. They're doing the math, and they're doing. They're looking at. They're looking at is also to see if this is a hot market, if it's a hot industry, if it's or if you're playing in an industry with the players are just swimming with the shark. You're going to be swimming with the sharks, or it's just not a big enough fit for what they do or what they're trying to get in return.
Yeah, and so I mean this episode of the podcast has obviously been about building a pitch deck. This one has been specifically about mostly the content itself within the pitch deck. We might do another episode because we're a little long on time right now. We might do another episode about kind of the aesthetics of the pitch deck, what you want your pitch deck to look like, how you want it to flow, making sure that it matches your brand, everything like that. And then we also might do an episode later about actually pitching a pitch deck and what goes into that. How to kind of balance, the little bit of information with what you're saying and making sure you're hitting all those talking points when you're actually in front of an investor. Did you
Yeah,
have anything you wanted to add, Ricky?
by no means are we the experts. I actually attended a
That is true.
conference. Yeah, I attended a conference yesterday at startups.com. Shout out to Will and I forget the other guy's name, but startups.com. Really great guys, really good, a good group of guys. Great feedback, but they were pretty much like what I was saying there. You got to be concise. People are going to read this over 5 minutes, less than 5 minutes probably. Be quick about everything you're saying. Make every word count. But yeah, far from the experts, but we did want to bring you guys along for the journey, what we've learned, some of the do's and don'ts that we've heard, and be cool to come back to this episode years down the line. We've gotten multiple rounds of funding, and we've got all this revenue coming in, and we're rocking and rolling to kind of come back to this. We'll probably be looking at like, damn, what are these two idiots talking about on here? Like, we, yeah, we had most of the things wrong, but I think you grow through this process is what I'm trying to say. Not that where it is, but you grow through this process, and you kind of look back and like see every stage you were a little green, and you get you mature more and more each stage. So be cool to look back and see our growth from this conversation onward.
Yeah, sounds right to me.
Yep. So again, thank you guys for tuning in. Hopefully, you got something out of this episode. We appreciate you all, and we will see you on the next one. Peace out.